Greetings, dear viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Shifarao Lako. Stay with us. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed arrived in Arba Minch city. The Premier and his delegation are expected to visit various developmental works during their stay in Arba Minch. In another development, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed presented awards to the families of the late leaders of 17 African countries who contributed to the establishment of the African Union and Pan-Africanism movement, including Emperor Haile Selassie. On the occasion, the Prime Minister disclosed that Ethiopia has been pursuing self-reliance and green diplomacy to tackle economic challenges. Shagaimat was more on that.
The final schedule of the African Prospective Youth Conference was held at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa Conference Center. The Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed presented awards to the families of lay leaders of 17 African countries who contributed to the establishment of African Union and Pan-Africanism movement, including Emperor Haile Selassie I. During the occasion, the Premier underlined that African economic sovereignty is in a vicious circle of challenges and state autonomy is vulnerable to interference.
Our economic sovereignty has been caught in a vicious cycle of lack, and our state autonomy has been vulnerable to interference. Lack of care, malnutrition, and unemployment have been challenging for years. We need to be innovative and skilled in meeting globalization challenges. African governments are charting development pathways. For instance, Ethiopia reduced poverty, increased literacy, and now has started paving the way to ensure food sovereignty.
The Premier also underlined that Ethiopia has been pursuing self-reliance and green diplomacy to tackle economic challenges, adding that Ethiopia is on track to export wheat to neighbor countries.
Through Green Legacy, Ethiopia is pursuing self-reliance and green diplomacy. Green Legacy focuses on boosting afforestation, sequestering carbon from the atmosphere, improving the livelihoods of citizens, and promoting green behavior. I invite you all to work together to forge a new system of green development and green behavior. Green is not only beautiful, but also grounded and stable. We need grounded leaders and a stable system in our continent, Africa. Another self-reliance initiative we are pursuing is our wheat production program. As a result, the country is on track to begin exporting wheat to our neighbors.
The Prime Minister further called on Africans to stay on the path that our forefathers paved.
As Africans, we must stay on the path that our forefathers paved. Remarkable Pan-Africanists founded the OAU in 1963 to promote unity and solidarity amongst African states, enable development and safeguard our continent's sovereignty and territorial integrity. This is an important reminder for you to be able to carry on the responsibilities set by the African Union Agenda 2063.
Finally, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed assured that Ethiopia is committed to work with the African Union to implement the Youth Summit decisions.
Now, the first African Youth Summit has been dubbed an important platform to discuss various continental issues as well as to cement African unity. Foreign Affairs State Minister Tesfaye Yilma told ETV that the summit was vital to identify major problems on the continent. Haptamo Shagri reports.
Over 42 African youth representatives have attended the first African Youth Summit to discuss on major continental issues over the past 4 days in the capital. Talking to TV English, State Minister for MOFA, Tesfaye Yilma, said the first African Youth Summit was critical in hammering continental issues.
We needed to initiate this summit so that the rest of the continent, the rest of the African youth can also pick it up and run with it. So I think in that regard it has been successful.
According to the State Minister, the summit will help African users to share their common values which are emanated from forefathers and to transform Africa by discharging shared responsibilities.
This generation has to take it forward. They don't have to fight the kind of liberation war that our forefathers fought, but they can fight it with modern technology, with modern communication tools, with the social media, with digital communication. They have to deploy all these things to get the spirit of Pan-Africanism down to the village level. It's possible now.
Participants also reiterated that the first African Youth Summit was created an important platform to discuss on continental issues as well as to cement Africans' unity.
African Prospective Summit leaders that were a very huge opportunity for the youth of the continent to be able to mobilize themselves and discuss about key important issues that concern us in terms of peace and security of our various countries, the economical development of our country through the ASCTFA that have been put in place so that it will promote the synergy and the unity of our country.
Pan-Africanism based on scientific socialism simply means we do not want to use the options of the West of capital.
Africans themselves are getting their stories wrong about each other, right? Because they're listening to much of their stories and their neighbors' stories through these mainstream media outlets, through so-called international human rights organizations like Amnesty and Human Rights Watch, which is just an arm of the colonial project. They come in and they pretend like they're the ones who care more about you than your neighbor does, but what they're trying to do is create rifts.
However, now, as a Pan-Africanist, I tell you that I relish the opportunity and the chance to live in any one of these hellholes within the continent. You see, I understand and accept the challenge of uniting Africans and making it the next big thing, not only as a Pan-Africanist, but as a youth as well.
Welcome back. Now, TPLF's biggest supporter, as it remained the major obstacle to peace in Ethiopia, has been the U.S. utilizing its dominant position within the UN Security Council and its own considerable diplomatic clout within the unipolar global system. The U.S. is using every ounce of its strength to shield the TPLF from any accountability. While peace talks are underway in South Africa, the U.S. came with yet another obstructive threat expressed via its permanent envoy to the UN, Linda Thompson-Greenfield. Instead of finding remedies to the conflict, the U.S. is proving unhelpful and deliberately applying both sidesism. Have a listen to this.
Western parties, particularly the US, have continued to repeat the TPLF's main talking points, in the process only strengthening the group's illegitimate demands and extending them a semblance of credibility. At the same time, a dangerous false equivalency has also been created, drawing a parallel between a legitimate government and a rebel force that has carried out illegal actions that no government anywhere in the world would tolerate. It's not legitimate for a group to take up arms illegally against the state and seek to carry out a forcibly change of regime or violent insurrection. While the TPLF is still helping hostilities to escalate by refusing to lay down its arms, the US State Department has come up with a rather bizarre demand that both sides lay down arms. Also, the US has shamefully requested the withdrawal of the Eritrean forces when it's abundantly clear that Eritrea is drawn into the conflict by the belligerent acts of the TPLF, and it's up to the government as a sovereign actor to decide on this.
The United States remains prepared to take appropriate measures against those who obstruct a resolution of this conflict, and we're determined to have those who commit human rights abuses held to account. Let me be clear, there is no military solution to this conflict. The only path forward is for the parties to pursue a negotiated settlement through peace talks. And we must prevent the region from spiraling further out of control. There's no time to waste.
To begin with, the situation in Ethiopia is far from spiraling out of control. The permanent envoy's statement is indicative of the West's desire to send peacekeeping troops under the guise of calming the region. Also, in utter neglect of the spirit of dialogue, Getachew Reda, one of the members of the TPLF's delegates to Pretoria, has lately echoed this same demand. As a result of its highly flawed, misguided approach, the West has not only raised major doubts about its claims to being a credible mediator, it has also greatly emboldened the TPLF and provided the group with a sense of impunity. Now the question remains will the US allow armed insurgency on its soil? Will the US negotiate with terrorists? Then why should Ethiopia allow armed insurgency on its soil? Ethiopia has shown its commitment to peace, but when push turns to shove, it will not watch from the sidelines with folded arms.
We might look powerless in the face of a block of countries, which we have faced it during the Second World War. But I want to assure you, Mr. Chair, the spirit of our soul is strong. That soul is not only to stand, to be an Ethiopian, but also to bring peace and as well as resolve our challenges.
There can be no doubt that the TPLF has been the central cause of so much of the tension, violence, and instability that have plagued Ethiopia in the wider region. For too long, however, the group have been facilitated and enabled by its Western backers.
Well, dear viewers, let's now turn our attention to trending stories, and I'm joined by my colleague Goshu Maliso. He's going to help us find some of the things that he saw over the past 24 hours. Goshu, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Shfi.
So can you walk me through some of the things that you've observed over the past 24 hours?
After the peace talk started in South Africa, many ideas have been circulating in social media, and many ideas have been forwarded in social media. So I have chosen comments in Twitter. So we will see that. Since the terrorist TPLF started or ignited the war by attacking the northern commands of Ethiopia in northern Ethiopia, diplomatic pressures continued still to twist hands of the Ethiopian government. So Ethiopia is not only fighting the terrorist TPLF, but also the imperialist groups or its interests to pursue their agenda on Ethiopia. So On top of that, the Ethiopian government has shown its unwavering commitment for peace to end the war peacefully. However, this has been disrupted by the TPLF, the terrorist TPLF, and its backers, as the Ethiopian Defense Force gain victories or pushing or advance to the northern parts of Ethiopia. TPLF and its enablers, but particularly the Biden administration and some Western countries, just cry over under the guise of humanitarian aid and human rights violation. They are accusing the Ethiopian government. So since the AU brokered talks started in South Africa, as I told you, in Pretoria, many ideas have been discussed. Particularly US and European Union sit as an observer there, but they are acting to pursue Ethiopia or pressing their agenda under the guise of peace talk. So especially US seems to be one of the negotiating group other than the observer, but it is pressing the peace talk, in the peace talk process. In one way, they claim they support the TPLF, the peace talk process, but it is on the contrary. So the mouthpiece of the terrorist TPLF, Getachew Reda, tweeted that the UN peacekeeping mission should enter Ethiopia. This is downplaying the Ethiopian sovereignty or territorial integrity of the nation. This is, it is not expected from one peace negotiating who seeking for seat. The peace process, as an observer. Yes. And plus to that, this is just downplaying or disparaging the Ethiopian sovereignty and territorial integrity. And it is not expected from one negotiating team because they sit for peace talk. And so they are not genuine peace seekers or peace lovers. Its backers, European Union, based in Addis Ababa, if you remember last time, they post the terrorist TPLF activist spot in their page. So despite finally they claim that it is hijacked or hacked by unknown person or unknown reason. So this is all these concerted efforts, when you see, it is to save TPLF and to give an oxygen or to give time to stay Ethiopia or to remain Ethiopia in prolonged war and toward its development agenda. So still they are accusing the Ethiopian government for unfettered humanitarian access. But it is to be recalled that the Ethiopian government has declared humanitarian truce and to end the war peacefully. So who disrupt that? The TPLF by advancing or reigniting the third round of war in northern Ethiopia. So OCHA confirmed that yesterday it is going to distribute aids in liberated areas in which the government of Ethiopia controlled. So one of renowned Professor Al-Mariam said that great improvement from providing aid to terrorist TPLF to providing aid to the needy, he said, according to the OCHA's commitment to distribute aid to the needy in northern parts of Ethiopia. Not only that, the Ethiopian government is also putting efforts to restore the power cut in the northern parts of Ethiopia, particularly in Kobo and Alamata. They repaired or maintained the power and they are getting light some parts of Ethiopia, which is destroyed by the TPLF. Almost it's 1 year they lost power. Power cut off in that area. So Professor Al-Mariam underlined this statement, what I have said earlier, great improvement from providing aid to terrorist TPLF to providing aid to the needy. This is a great deal by the OCHA, and this is finally the OCHA telling the truth, he said. This is all from me, Shafi.
Thank you, Gosh. Thank you so much for that piece of information.
Thank you.